My name is Christine. I'm 28 years old, and I'm standing at the podium as valedictorian of my medical school class, scanning the empty seats where my parents should be. My voice cracks as I begin my speech, knowing they chose my sister Ashley's luxury resort vacation over this moment. I grip the microphone tighter, feeling the weight of 4 years of sacrifices. The dean hands me the Special Recognition Award, but my eyes blur with tears. Then I spot someone unexpected in the crowd, and everything I plan to say changes. Before we dive into what happened next, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. Are you someone who's ever felt overlooked by your own family? If this resonates with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories about finding your voice when the people who should support you the most let you down. Trust me, what I said on that stage not only changed my life forever, but went viral for a reason you won't believe. Let's get into how my parents' absence became the greatest gift they ever gave me. The morning of my medical school graduation started like so many other important days in my life with a text message from my mother. I was adjusting my cap and gown in the mirror of my tiny studio apartment when my phone buzzed. "Sorry, honey, Ashley's resort package was non-refundable. We'll celebrate when we get back. So proud of you." The casual dismissal of 4 years of blood, sweat, and tears into 11 words felt like a knife twisting in my gut. I stared at the message, reading it over and over, hoping somehow the words would rearrange themselves into something that made sense. This wasn't the first time they'd chosen Ashley over me, not by a long shot. When I graduated summa cum laude from my undergraduate program, they missed it because Ashley had a dance recital at her community center. "She's been practicing for months," my mother had explained, as if I hadn't been studying for 4 years. When I called them crying with joy after receiving my MCAT scores that put me in the 98th percentile, they were too busy taking Ashley shopping for her senior prom dress to really listen. "That's nice, dear," my father had said distractedly in the background. "Ashley, try the pink one." The day I got accepted to Johns Hopkins School of Medicine, one of the most competitive programs in the country, I received a 2-word text from my mother: "Congratulations, honey." That same week, when Ashley got accepted to the local community college after failing to get into any of the 4-year schools she'd applied to, my parents threw a party with 50 guests. They rented out the back room of Ashley's favorite restaurant, ordered a custom cake that said "College Bound," and my father gave a speech about how proud he was of his determined daughter who never gave up on her dreams. But this graduation betrayal hit different because I'd discovered the truth through Ashley's Instagram stories just 3 days before. The non-refundable resort package they claimed they couldn't cancel. It was booked exactly 2 weeks ago, long after they knew my graduation date. I'd sent them the ceremony information 4 months in advance, reminded them monthly, and even offered to pay for their flights. Ashley's post showed the booking confirmation with a caption: "Finally convinced the parentals to come to Turks and Caicos with me and Drake." Sometimes you just need to put yourself first. My roommate Sarah found me sobbing on our kitchen floor that morning, surrounded by the pages of my original valedictorian speech. She knelt beside me, pulling me into a hug as I shook with years of suppressed hurt. "Chris, you don't have to go through with the speech if it's too much," she said gently, but something inside me had finally snapped. I wasn't going to stand up there and thank my family for their support when they couldn't even bother to show up. I was done pretending everything was fine. Done making excuses for them, done being understanding. I spent the next 2 hours rewriting my entire speech. Every word was carefully chosen, every sentence crafted to tell the truth I'd been swallowing for 28 years. Sarah watched nervously as I typed furiously, occasionally offering suggestions, but mostly just being there the way my family never was. "Are you sure about this?" she asked as I printed out the final version. I looked at her with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. The drive to campus took me past my childhood home, and I couldn't help but slow down as I passed. The driveway where I'd waited for them to come to my science fair presentations, where I'd stood in my prom dress while they rushed Ashley to an emergency hair appointment. The window of my old bedroom where I'd watched them leave for Ashley's events while I studied alone. The front steps where I'd sat with my acceptance letter to Johns Hopkins waiting for them to come home from Ashley's celebration dinner for passing her driver's test on the third try. Every corner of that house held a memory of being second best, and today I was finally going to stop pretending it didn't hurt. To understand why my parents' absence didn't surprise me, you need to understand Ashley. At 26, my younger sister had perfected the art of being the eternal victim, the struggling soul who just needed a little more help, a little more attention, a little more everything. With her perfectly styled blonde hair and wide blue eyes that could fill with tears on command, Ashley had learned early how to manipulate our parents' emotions like a maestro conducting a symphony of guilt and obligation. The pattern started when we were kids. Whenever I achieved something noteworthy, Ashley would mysteriously develop a crisis. The day I won the regional spelling bee, Ashley suddenly had a panic attack that required both parents to leave the auditorium before they announced the winner. When I was selected for the National Honor Society, Ashley's severe migraine meant they missed the induction ceremony. By high school, she'd refined her technique, learning to weaponize their guilt over her struggles, both real and manufactured. Christine just has it so easy. Ashley would sigh dramatically at family dinners. Everything just comes naturally to her. She doesn't understand what it's like to really struggle. Our parents would nod sympathetically, completely missing the irony that my natural success came from studying until 3 in the morning while Ashley partied with her friends. They never saw the practice tests I took over, and over the extracurriculars I juggled to build my resume, or the part-time jobs I worked to pay for my own SAT prep courses. Ashley's favorite manipulation tactic was to accuse me of showing off whenever I shared good news. When I excitedly told the family about making Dean's List, Ashley burst into tears. "She's just rubbing it in my face that I'm struggling in my classes," she wailed. Instead of congratulating me, my parents spent the evening comforting Ashley and later pulled me aside to ask if I could be more sensitive about my achievements. I learned to keep my successes to myself, celebrating alone in my room while Ashley's every minor accomplishment was treated like a Nobel Prize. The financial disparity between how they treated us was staggering. They paid for Ashley to attend 3 different colleges as she dropped out of each one, claiming the programs weren't right for her. They bought her a brand new car when she crashed the first one they'd given her texting while driving. They covered the rent for her various apartments when she quit job after job because her bosses were mean, or the work was too stressful. Meanwhile, I worked 3 jobs during undergrad, lived on ramen and hope, and took out massive student loans that would follow me for decades. When I started applying to medical schools, I made the mistake of asking if they could help with application fees. My mother looked genuinely confused. "But Christine, you know we're already stretched thin helping Ashley get back on her feet." Ashley was getting back on her feet from her latest crisis, quitting her job at a boutique because they expected her to arrive on time. The same week, they paid for her to take a $2,000 Find Yourself retreat in Sedona. The situation escalated when Ashley met Drake 6 months ago. Drake fashioned himself as a lifestyle influencer despite having only 3,000 followers, mostly bots. He was 29, lived with his parents, and spent his days making TikToks about manifesting abundance, while mooching off anyone gullible enough to fund his lifestyle. Ashley was instantly smitten, and our parents were thrilled she'd found someone who understands her creative spirit. The birthday incident 2 months ago should have prepared me for the graduation betrayal. I turned 28 on a Tuesday, a regular workday that I spent in the hospital doing rounds. Not a single text or call from my family. That Saturday, I came home exhausted from a 36-hour shift to find Instagram flooded with pictures from Ashley's pre-birthday celebration that my parents had thrown. Her actual birthday was still 2 weeks away, but she'd convinced them she needed an early party because Drake was taking her to a very important influencer event on her real birthday. The event turned out to be a pool party at his friend's apartment complex. Dr. Patricia Chen, my mentor at the hospital, noticed something was wrong during rounds the next week. She pulled me aside after a particularly difficult case presentation. "Christine, you're one of my strongest residents, but lately you seem depleted. And I don't mean just tired. Is everything okay?" I found myself telling her about the birthday situation, the graduation, all of it. She listened quietly, then said something that changed my perspective. "You know, the brightest lights often come from the darkest backgrounds. Your success isn't despite your family's neglect, it's because you learned to be your own champion. Don't let their absence dim your moment." Walking to the podium felt like moving through water, each step heavy with the weight of everything I'd carried alone for so long. The auditorium was packed with families, their cameras ready, their faces beaming with pride for their graduating doctors. I forced myself to look straight ahead, avoiding the 2 empty seats in the 3rd row that had our family name placards. My hands trembled as I adjusted the microphone, the familiar opening of my original speech trying to push through my lips. Instead, I took a deep breath and looked out at the sea of faces. Distinguished faculty, proud families, and my fellow graduates. I began, my voice steadier than I expected. "I stand before you today as your valedictorian, a title that represents not just academic achievement, but a journey of perseverance." I paused, feeling the weight of the moment. I had prepared a traditional speech about gratitude and dreams, but this morning I realized I needed to tell you a different truth. A truth about what it really takes to stand here when the people who should be your foundation choose to be elsewhere. A murmur rippled through the audience as I continued. "Today my parents are not in those empty seats because they chose to accompany my sister to a resort in Turks and Caicos. A trip they booked 2 weeks ago, long after I sent them the date of this ceremony." Gasps echoed through the auditorium, but I pressed on, my voice growing stronger. "This is not the first time, nor I suspect will it be the last. But today I want to talk about how absence can be a gift, how abandonment can become strength, and how sometimes the family you choose becomes more powerful than the family you're born into." I shared the story of studying for the MCAT in the hospital bathroom during my overnight shifts as a janitor, how I'd memorized organic chemistry formulas while mopping floors, and practiced physics problems during my 15-minute breaks. "I clean these very halls," I said, gesturing to the building around us, "scrubbing the floors of the OR where I now assist in surgeries. I learned that there's no shame in any honest work when it's funding your dreams." Several of my classmates were crying now, remembering the times they'd seen me in my janitor uniform rushing to change before morning lectures. My parents never saw those late nights or early mornings. They were busy. Always busy. Too busy for my undergraduate graduation, too busy for my white coat ceremony, too busy to celebrate when I scored in the 98th percentile on the MCAT. I could feel the emotion building in my chest, but pushed through. They weren't too busy, however, to throw a 50-person party when my sister got accepted to community college after failing to get into any 4-year schools. They weren't too busy to fly to her dance recitals, her shopping trips, her every manufactured crisis that somehow always coincided with my achievements. The audience had gone completely silent, hanging on every word. But here's what I learned in these halls from the professors who stayed late to answer my questions, from the attendings who saw potential in the girl who cleaned their offices, from the classmates who became my chosen family. Blood isn't always family, and family isn't always blood. I found Mrs. Rodriguez in the crowd, then my high school science teacher sitting in the front row, tears streaming down her face. Mrs. Rodriguez drove 4 hours to be here today. She's been to every important moment of my academic career. She answered my panicked calls during organic chemistry, sent care packages during finals, and never once made me feel like I was asking for too much. Dr. Patricia Chen. I continued nodding to my mentor in the faculty section. Taught me that success isn't about proving your worth to people who refuse to see it. It's about recognizing your own value and surrounding yourself with people who never questioned it in the first place. The nurses who saved me dinner during long shifts, the security guard who walked me to my car after late-night study sessions, the librarian who bent the rules to let me stay past closing, these people became my village. I pulled out a folded paper from my pocket, my hands steady now. I have here a list of every event my parents missed, every milestone they deemed less important than my sister's wants. I used to carry this as evidence of my unworthiness. Today I see it as a record of my resilience. 24 missed events. 24 times I stood alone. 24 opportunities to learn that I was enough just me without their validation. The emotion in my voice finally broke through as I reached the conclusion. To my fellow graduates who've walked similar paths, who've funded their dreams with sacrifice and determination, who've been told they're selfish for pursuing their goals, or heartless for choosing their career over family dysfunction, I see you. To those who've been asked to dim their light so others don't feel overshadowed, I see you. To everyone who's been labeled the one who has it easy. While working 3 jobs and studying until dawn, I see you. I succeeded not because of where I came from, but because of who believed in me when my own family couldn't be bothered to try. Today, I don't mourn their absence. I celebrate the presence of everyone who showed up, everyone who saw my worth when I couldn't, everyone who reminded me that family is about choice, not chance, and love is about actions, not obligations. I raised my diploma high. This degree isn't mine alone. It belongs to everyone who chose to be my family when my blood relatives chose a beach vacation instead. The silence that followed felt eternal. Then suddenly the auditorium erupted. One person stood, then another, then entire rows rising to their feet. The standing ovation seemed to go on forever, and through my tears I saw my chosen family's Sarah, filming with proud tears, Mrs. Rodriguez clutching her heart, Dr. Chen nodding with fierce pride, my study group cheering louder than anyone. This was what family looked like. This was what love looked like. And for the first time in my life, I felt truly seen. Backstage was chaos. The moment I stepped off the platform, I was enveloped in a sea of embraces. Dean Harrison reached me first, his usually composed demeanor cracked with emotion. In 30 years of academia, he said, his voice thick, I've never witnessed anything like that. Christine, what you did up there, that took incredible courage. Other professors surrounded me, each sharing their own stories of family rejection of choosing medicine over family expectations of walking alone across stages that should have been filled with loved ones. My phone was exploding with notifications, but it was Sarah who reached me with the news that would change everything. Chris, she said, her face flushed with excitement. You're trending, like actually trending. Someone live-streamed your speech and it's already got 200,000 views. And climbing. She showed me her phone where my face was frozen mid-speech, the caption reading, Med student exposes parents who skipped graduation for vacation. The comments were pouring in so fast the screen was blurring. There's something else, Sarah said, pulling me aside from the crowd. I need to tell you something. For the past year, I've been working on a documentary about first-generation medical students and the unique challenges they face. I've been filming some of our journey with your permission for the study sessions and general footage. But Chris, what just happened? This is the story. This is what people need to see. Her eyes searched mine for permission for understanding. I know I should have told you sooner, but I didn't want to add any pressure to what you were already carrying. Before I could process this revelation, my phone rang. Ashley's face filled the screen, and against my better judgment, I answered. How dare you? She screeched so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. You've ruined everything, Mom is crying, Dad is furious, and the whole resort is talking about it. The manager showed them your video at the pool bar. You're so selfish, Christine. Everything always has to be about you and your precious achievements. You couldn't just let us have one nice vacation without making yourself the victim. I found myself laughing, actually laughing at the absurdity of her accusation. Ashley, I didn't make myself the victim. I just stopped pretending to be okay with being one. She hung up on me, but I felt lighter somehow, like speaking my truth had physically removed weight from my shoulders. The next few hours blurred together as more and more people approached me. Parents of other graduates shared their own stories of children who'd overcome family indifference. A woman pressed a business card into my hand, whispering that her foundation supported medical students from difficult backgrounds, and she wanted to help with my loans. Dr. Chen found me in a quiet corner where I'd retreated to catch my breath. I've been on the phone with the residency director at Mass General, she said without preamble. They want you, Christine. They watched your speech, and more importantly, they know your work. They're prepared to offer you a position in their surgical residency program with additional support for research. This kind of opportunity doesn't come around often. My hands shook as I took the paperwork she handed me. Mass General, one of the most prestigious programs in the country. A program I dreamed about but never thought I'd have the connections to access. The group chat with my extended family began exploding around dinner time. My cousin Priya, who'd always been treated as the other successful one compared to Ashley, sent a long message. Christine, I'm in tears. I'm so proud of you for saying what I've watched happen for years. The way Uncle and Auntie treat you versus Ashley has been painful to witness. We all see it. We've all talked about it. But you standing up there and speaking your truth, that's the bravest thing I've ever seen. Message after message poured in from cousins, aunts, uncles, all sharing their own observations, their own frustrations with watching my parents' blatant favoritism. My grandmother's call came as I was finally leaving campus. Her voice, usually so measured and careful, was fierce with emotion. Beta, I watched the video. Your grandfather and I are heartbroken, but so proud. We've been watching this happen for years, trying to intervene carefully, but your parents always had excuses. No more. We're done being silent. You should know that we've been putting money aside for you, secretly knowing they wouldn't help with your education. It's yours now, all of it. And Christine. What you said about choosing family, we choose you, Beta. We've always chosen you. As the sun set on my graduation day, Ashley went live on Instagram from the resort. Sarah and I watched from my apartment, exhausted but unable to look away from the train wreck. Ashley, clearly drunk on poolside cocktails, was ranting about being victimized by my attention-seeking behavior. But the comments weren't going the way she expected. Instead of sympathy, she was being roasted. Your sister graduated from medical school, and you're upset she mentioned you're on vacation. The entitlement is strong with this one. Imagine being mad that your sister told the truth. She kept trying to defend herself, making it worse with every word, until Drake finally grabbed the phone and ended the live. My phone rang again. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Miss Thompson, this is Patricia Williams from CNN. We've been following your story and would love to have you on tomorrow morning to discuss the broader implications of what you've shared. Your speech is resonating with thousands of people who've experienced similar family dynamics. Would you be willing to share your story with our audience? I looked at Sarah, who nodded encouragingly, then at my diploma sitting on the coffee table. Yes, I said, surprising myself with the firmness in my voice. I think it's time more people heard this story. 3 days after graduation, they showed up. No call, no text, just the sharp knock on my apartment door at 7 in the morning. I knew it was them before I even looked through the peephole. My mother's perfectly styled hair was frazzled, my father's golf tans somehow looked gray. They'd cut their vacation short and flown back on the red-eye. I considered not opening the door, but something in me needed this confrontation. I'd spoken my truth to strangers. Now it was time to face the people who'd necessitated it. How could you do this to us? Were my mother's first words as they pushed past me into my small living room. No hello, no acknowledgement of missing my graduation, just straight to their victimhood. Do you have any idea what we've been through? The hotel staff recognized us from your viral video. Everyone at the resort was whispering. Ashley hasn't stopped crying. You've humiliated our entire family. I remained standing while they settled onto my secondhand couch, the one I'd bought from a graduating resident for $50. I told the truth, I said simply. If the truth humiliates you, perhaps you should examine why. My father's face flushed red, the vein in his temple that appeared when he was angry beginning to throb. You aired our private family business to the world. You made us look like monsters. Do you know how many calls we've gotten? My business partners saw the video. Christine, my business partners, what exactly did I say that was untrue? I asked, surprising myself with how calm I felt. This moment I'd dreaded for years was finally here, and instead of fear, I felt free. My mother started crying, then the theatrical tears she usually reserved for when Ashley needed something expensive. "We've done our best. You don't understand how hard it's been with Ashley. She's sensitive, she needs more support. You've always been so strong, so independent. We knew you'd be fine. Did you know I'd be fine when I was working 3 jobs to pay for MCAT prep, while you paid for Ashley's 4th attempt at college? Did you know I'd be fine when I was studying in the hospital bathroom during my janitorial shifts? Or were you just too busy knowing Ashley needed a new car after she crashed the one you'd just bought her?" The list I'd mentioned in my speech was in my desk drawer, and I pulled it out now, unfolding it slowly. 24 events. Would you like me to read them to you? Starting with my first science fair in middle school that you missed for Ashley's participation trophy ceremony. Before they could respond, the door burst open. Ashley stormed in, Drake trailing behind her with his phone out, clearly filming. Her face was blotchy from crying, her usually perfect makeup smeared. "You destroyed my life," she screamed. "The resort kicked us out early because people were harassing us. My Instagram is full of hate comments. Drake's brand partnership deals are being canceled. This is all your fault." Ashley put the phone down. I said to Drake, who was circling for better angles, "This isn't content. This is my life." He smirked, continuing to film. "Actually, this is great content. Confronting my girlfriend's jealous sister will get major views." I walked to my door and opened it. "Get out. Now. Or I call the police." The authority in my voice must have surprised them because Drake actually lowered his phone. "See," Ashley turned to our parents. "See how she treats me. She's always been jealous of me, just because she has to work for everything while things come naturally to me." The irony of her statement hung in the air. Things came naturally to Ashley because they were handed to her, while everything I had, I'd earned through blood, sweat, and sacrifice. "Ashley," I said slowly, "I need you to understand something. I'm not jealous of you. I pity you. You're 26 years old with no degree, no job, no savings, and a boyfriend who sees you as content. What exactly should I be jealous of?" That's when my grandmother called on FaceTime. I answered, and her face filled the screen alongside my grandfather's. They'd been watching everything unfold from their home in California. "Enough," my grandmother said, her voice cutting through the room. "Robert, Linda, sit down. Ashley, be quiet. Christine, prop the phone up so we can all talk." The authority in her voice was absolute, and even my parents, both in their 50s, immediately obeyed their mother. "We've been silent for too long," my grandfather began. "We watched you favor one daughter over another for years, making excuses, enabling destructive behavior while ignoring excellence. Did you know Christine earned a full scholarship to her undergraduate program? No, because you were too busy celebrating Ashley passing remedial math to attend the awards ceremony." My parents shifted uncomfortably. "That was the same week as Ashley's dance recital." My mother protested weakly. "The recital was on Saturday. The ceremony was on Thursday." My grandmother corrected. "We know because we flew in for it. We sat with Christine while she looked for you in the crowd. We dried her tears afterward. We've been there in the shadows watching our granddaughter excel despite your neglect." She paused, letting the words sink in. "We've already informed our lawyer. Our will has been updated. Ashley will receive a trust fund that will provide a modest monthly allowance, enough to live but not enough to avoid working. Christine will receive the rest, including the properties." Ashley's shriek could probably be heard 3 apartments over. "That's not fair. I'm the one who needs help. Christine will be a rich doctor. This is so typical, everyone always takes her side." My grandfather's face hardened. "Ashley, you just proved our point. Your sister sacrificed everything to become a doctor while you've been handed everything and accomplished nothing. Christine earned her success. What have you earned?" The silence stretched until my father finally spoke. "Mom, Dad, you can't punish Ashley for our mistakes." My grandmother's laugh was bitter. "We're not punishing Ashley. We're preventing you from continuing to enable her destruction. And Christine isn't being rewarded for your neglect. She's being acknowledged for her perseverance despite it. She turned her attention to me through the screen. Beta, we've transferred the first installment to your account. Pay off those loans. You've carried enough burdens. My mother was sobbing now, but for the first time they seemed like genuine tears. Ashley always seemed to need us more. Christine was so capable, so strong. We thought... She trailed off, perhaps finally hearing how it sounded. My father picked up where she left off. We need you to fix this, Christine. Make a statement, say you exaggerated something. My reputation, our standing in the community, it's all at risk. I looked at these people who'd given me life but not much else, and felt the last chains of obligation break. No. I won't lie to make you comfortable. I won't diminish my truth to protect your reputation. You made choices for 28 years. Now you get to live with the consequences. Ashley jumped up, pointing at me. You've always been like this perfect Christine who never does anything wrong. You probably planned this whole thing to humiliate me. For the first time since they'd arrived, I smiled. Ashley, this isn't about you. That's what you can't understand. My graduation, my speech, my success, none of it is about you. You've spent so long being the center of attention that you can't comprehend a moment that doesn't revolve around you. But here's the truth you need to hear. I haven't thought about you at all. I've been too busy building my life to worry about yours. My parents stood to leave my mother, turning back one last time. So that's it. You're just going to cut us out of your life. We're your parents, Christine. Doesn't that mean anything? I thought about it for a moment, really considered the question. Being parents means showing up. It means celebrating successes and supporting through failures. It means loving both your children equally. You've been Ashley's parents. You've never been mine. So to answer your question, no. It doesn't mean anything anymore. As they filed out, Ashley turned for one last shot. I hope you're happy being alone. Because that's what happens to selfish people like you. They end up alone. I looked around my small apartment, thought about Sarah, who was on her way over Mrs. Rodriguez, who'd texted to check on me, Dr. Chen, who'd already connected me with mentors at Mass General, my grandparents who'd chosen to stand by me, my chosen family who'd filled those empty seats with their love. Ashley, I said gently, I haven't been alone in years. You just never noticed the village around me because you were too focused on yourself. The door closed behind them, and for the first time in my life I felt the weight of their expectations, their neglect, their conditional love lift entirely off my shoulders. Within a week of graduation, my life transformed in ways I couldn't have imagined. The video of my speech had crossed 10 million views across various platforms, and major news outlets were calling it the speech that changed the conversation about family dynamics. I found myself in a position I'd never expected, becoming a voice for thousands who'd lived in the shadows of favored siblings, who'd succeeded despite family neglect, who'd been labeled the strong one, as an excuse for abandonment. The CNN interview led to more opportunities. Good Morning America. The Today Show, countless podcasts and online publications wanted to hear my story. But more importantly, they wanted to discuss the broader implications. Psychologists reached out to explain the damage of parentification of assigning roles to children that excuse neglect. Sociologists wanted to discuss the impact on achievement when family support is absent. I was careful with each appearance, always bringing the focus back to the community that raised me when my blood family wouldn't. The job offers came flooding in from hospitals across the country. Residency programs that typically had their picks of Ivy League graduates were extending offers to me, not just because of my academic achievements, but because of what I represented. We want residents who understand struggle, who can relate to patients from all walks of life, the program director at Boston Children's Hospital explained. Your journey, your resilience. That's what makes great doctors, not just great students. But it was Mass General that captured my heart. Dr. Chen had been right about the program, but it was their approach that sealed my decision. They offered not just a residency, but a platform. They wanted me to develop a support program for medical students and residents dealing with family estrangement or lack of support. Turn your pain into purpose, the chief resident had said. Help others navigate what you survived alone. Sarah's documentary project exploded beyond her wildest dreams. Netflix didn't just pick it up. They fast-tracked it, wanting to capture the rawness of the moment while it was still fresh. She interviewed classmates who shared their own stories of sacrifice, professors who'd mentored students through family crises, and healthcare workers who'd achieved their dreams without family support. My story became the centerpiece, but it was really about all of us, the forgotten achievers who refused to be limited by others' expectations. The speaking invitations were overwhelming. Medical schools wanted me to address their incoming classes about resilience. Healthcare conferences invited me to discuss the importance of mentorship for students lacking family support. I partnered with Mrs. Rodriguez to create a scholarship program for high school students in similar situations, funded by the unexpected windfall from my grandparents, and supplemented by donations that poured in from people touched by my story. Meanwhile, Ashley's world was crumbling in real time. Her Instagram follower count plummeted as people discovered her entitled rants. The boutique where she'd briefly worked before quitting posted their own story revealing she'd been fired for stealing merchandise and blaming coworkers. Drake dumped her, publicly posting a video about distancing himself from toxic energy and focusing on positive vibes only. The same day, he was spotted with another aspiring influencer, someone with more followers and fewer family scandals. My parents attempted damage control with a Facebook post that became infamous for all the wrong reasons. They shared a carefully curated collection of photos, showing the many times they'd supported both daughters equally. The internet detectives quickly pointed out that every photo with me was from elementary school, while Ashley's photos spanned through the previous week. Their attempt to paint me as an ungrateful daughter backfired spectacularly when relatives and family friends began commenting with their own observations of the favoritism. The book deal came through a literary agent who'd experienced similar family dynamics. "Your story isn't just about medical school or achievement," she explained. "It's about breaking generational patterns, about choosing yourself when your family won't choose you. That's universal." The advance was more than I'd ever imagined, enough to completely pay off my loans with money left over to actually furnish my apartment with something other than secondhand furniture. 6 months into my residency, I received an unexpected message. Ashley had gotten a real job working as a receptionist at a dental office. She'd been in therapy, she wrote, and was beginning to understand the dynamics she'd perpetuated. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," her message read. "I know I'm not there yet, but I wanted you to know that I'm trying to change. Your speech didn't just free you. In a weird way, it freed me too. I never had to grow up because they never let me. Now I have to, and it's terrifying, but maybe that's what I needed." I stared at the message for a long time before responding. "I'm glad you're getting help. Focus on yourself, on building a life that's truly yours. Maybe someday we can have a relationship built on mutual respect rather than manipulation. But that day isn't today." It wasn't forgiveness, but it wasn't cruelty either. It was boundaries, something I'd finally learned to set. The scholarship fund in my grandmother's name had awarded its first recipients kids whose parents couldn't or wouldn't support their dreams. At the award ceremony, I stood before them, seeing my younger self in their hopeful, scared faces. "You are not alone," I told them, meaning every word. "You may not have the family you deserved, but you have the family you'll choose. And sometimes, just sometimes, that's even more powerful." A year after that fateful graduation day, I stood in the same auditorium, this time as the invited commencement speaker for the medical school's newest graduates. The irony wasn't lost on me that I was occupying the same podium where everything had changed. As I looked out at the sea of caps and gowns, I spotted my grandparents in the front row, their faces beaming with pride. Mrs. Rodriguez sat beside them, wearing the proud medical mama pin I'd given her. and Dr. Chen was in the faculty section nodding encouragingly. A year ago, I stood here and told my truth. I began my voice steady and sure. Today, I want to tell you what happened next. Not the viral video part, not the internet fame that faded as these things do, but the real part. The part where healing begins when you stop waiting for apologies that may never come and start building a life that doesn't require them. My residency at Mass General had exceeded every expectation. The support program I'd developed for estranged medical professionals had grown into a national model, with hospitals across the country implementing similar initiatives. We'd created a network of mentors, a fund for emergency support, and most importantly, a community where family problems wasn't a shameful secret, but a shared experience that could be overcome. 6 months ago, I continued. I received a letter from my parents. A real letter, not a text or email, but pages of handwritten reflection. They'd been in therapy, both individual and family counseling. They wrote about patterns they'd learned from their own parents, about fears they'd projected, about the damage they'd caused by assigning roles to their children instead of seeing them as individuals. I paused, letting the weight of that sink in. I want to be clear, their healing journey is not my responsibility. But I've learned that holding space for growth, even at a distance, is sometimes part of our own healing. The documentary Sarah produced had won several awards, and more importantly, had sparked a national conversation about family dynamics and achievement. She was in the audience today working on her next project about healthcare heroes who emerged from unlikely backgrounds. We'd remained close friends, bonded by the experience of turning pain into purpose, of refusing to let circumstances define our ceilings. I've had limited contact with my parents. I shared knowing this was what many in the audience wondered about. Boundaries aren't walls, they're property lines. They define where I end and others begin. We have monthly phone calls, structured and brief. They're in therapy, genuinely working to understand the damage they caused. Ashley is building her own life slowly but steadily. She's been at the same job for 8 months now, a record for her. She's even started community college again, paying her own way this time. The audience was silent, absorbing every word. But here's what I really want you to understand. Forgiveness isn't required for healing. You can move forward without moving backward. You can build a beautiful life without rebuilding burned bridges. Some relationships are meant to be released, not repaired, and that's okay. What matters is that you choose what serves your growth, not what serves others' comfort. I thought about the unexpected blessings that had come from that painful day. The grandfather who now called weekly to discuss my cases, fascinated by medical advancements. The grandmother who'd become my fiercest advocate, showing up to every important moment with enough food to feed the entire hospital staff. The chosen family that had expanded to include fellow residents attending physicians and patients whose lives had touched mine. Last month, I continued. I performed my first solo surgery. As I scrubbed in, I thought about all the people who should have been there to celebrate, but weren't. Then I thought about all the people who were there in spirit, every mentor who stayed late, every friend who held space for my pain, every stranger on the internet who said "me too" and made me feel less alone. That's the family that matters. The one that shows up even when they can't be physically present. The white coat ceremony Sarah had filmed for the documentary showed on the screen behind me. There I was receiving my coat not from my parents, as tradition dictated, but from Mrs. Rodriguez and Dr. Chen together. The audience could see my tears, but also my smile, the pure joy of being claimed by people who'd chosen to love me. This moment, I said, captures what I've learned. Family isn't about DNA. It's about showing up. It's about choosing to love someone not because you have to, but because you can't imagine not doing it. As I concluded my speech, I looked directly at the graduates who might be sitting where I sat a year ago, scanning for faces that wouldn't be there. To those of you with empty seats, with parents who chose elsewhere, with families who couldn't see your light, I see you. Your achievement is not diminished by their absence. If anything, it's magnified by it. You didn't just earn a degree. You overcame every obstacle, including the ones that should have been your support system. Build your village, I urged them. Collect your people like treasures. The professor who believes in you, hold on to them. The friend who celebrates your victories without jealousy, keep them close. The mentor who sees your potential when you can't follow their lead. These are your people. This is your family. And sometimes the family you choose is stronger than the family you're born into, because it's built on respect, admiration, and genuine love, not obligation. I ended with words that had become my mantra. Your worth is not determined by who does or doesn't show up for you. Your success is not validated by their presence or invalidated by their absence. You are whole, worthy, and wonderful exactly as you are. And sometimes the greatest gift your blood family can give you is the absence that forces you to find your real family. The one that chooses you every single day, not because they have to, but because they can't imagine their lives without you in it. The standing ovation felt different this time. It wasn't for a moment of pain transformed into power, but for a journey of healing shared with others walking similar paths. As I left the stage, my phone buzzed with a text from my mother. We watched online. We're proud of you. Thank you for leaving space for us to grow. I smiled, tucking the phone away. They were trying, and that was something. But whether they succeeded or not, I had everything I needed. A career I loved, a chosen family that sustained me, and the knowledge that sometimes the hardest roads lead to the most beautiful destinations. That evening, surrounded by my chosen family at a celebration dinner, I raised a toast. To empty seats that become full hearts, to missing pieces that become whole pictures, to the families we build when the families we're born into fall short, and to every single person who chooses to show up, not because they have to, but because they want to. You are my people. You are my family. And I am forever grateful. Mrs. Rodriguez squeezed my hand. My grandparents beamed with pride. Sarah filmed it all for posterity. And Dr. Chen simply nodded that small gesture, saying everything. This was what family looked like. This was what love looked like. And it was more than enough. It was everything. Looking back now, I realize my parents' absence from my graduation wasn't a curse. It was a catalyst. It forced me to speak my truth, find my voice, and discover that sometimes the family that skips your biggest moment gives you the platform to inspire thousands of others who needed to hear that they weren't alone. That their worth wasn't tied to their family's recognition. That success earned in solitude shines just as bright, maybe even brighter, than success shared with those who were supposed to care. And to everyone reading this, who's ever felt overlooked, underloved, or unsupported by the people who should have been your biggest cheerleaders, your story matters. Your pain is valid. Your success is real. And somewhere out there, your chosen family is waiting to love you exactly as you are. Sometimes you just have to be brave enough to let them. What did you think of Christine's journey? Have you ever felt overlooked by family during important moments? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please give this video a like and subscribe to hear more stories about resilience, chosen families, and finding your voice when the world tries to silence it. Share this with someone who needs to hear that they're not alone in their struggle. Thank you for being part of this community, for showing up for strangers on the internet, the way some families can't show up for their own. You are seen, you are valued, and you matter. Until next time, remember, the family that chooses you is sometimes more powerful than the family you're born into. Stay strong and keep choosing yourself.